There's a great probability of me that.
Maureen Kermend, who's not here, she's coaching gymnastics right now, did that video. She does it every year. I think it's one of the most awesome things that we do. So if we could give her a round of applause and make sure that we... My name is Mike Healy. I'm the athletic director here at Wheaton Warrenville South. Feel very blessed to welcome all of you here today. I appreciate you guys all coming to welcome a very special class. Before I kind of talk a little bit about that, you know, I know Chuck Baker was here. I know, you know, Coach Geppinger and Coach Brennan are both going in. They're guys that when I started here at Wheaton Warrenville South, they were the guys. They were the guys that taught how to be a Tiger and all that. And I think that the one thing I learned is if you're going to do something that you have to go all out if you're at Wheaton Warrenville South. And we have an unbelievable committee. And the flags, the beauty, you guys know I didn't do this, the beautiful flowers, everything that's set up out there is done by our committee. So I want to make sure some are here, some are coaching, but I want to give a big shout out to Rob Harvey over here, Matt Scheffler, who does all our videoing, Casey Gassensmith's back here, Eric Giltz, Coach Carlini is back there, Mr. Janisek, who's coaching wrestling right now, Coach Kronk is maybe here. He just had a big win. And Coach Kermend. And then one big round of applause to Lisa Stemple. She's my assistant. She's been here for 3 days straight for about 8 hours doing all of this stuff. I watched her watching a YouTube video on how to put bows together. She's unbelievable. So all of this stuff that's extra, that's just beautiful and makes it special. If you see her, please give her a huge round of applause and a thank you. So thank you. I'm also the head boys basketball coach, and so we were talking to our guys yesterday because, you know, for me, I replaced Coach Brennan, and Reilly played for me, and I see a bunch of his teammates, so it's kind of weird, also kind of exciting, and I talked to the guys about how special Wheaton Warrenville South is, and the traditions that Wheaton Warrenville South and Wheaton Central and Wheaton Warrenville and Wheaton Community and Wheaton High School, all the things that they've provided for the communities of Wheaton and Warrenville. And this class is special, and we talk all the time to our athletes about that they're number 5 or they're number 10 or whatever they are in whatever sport they're in, that they're just not playing for themselves, but somebody wore that number back in the 60s, back in the 70s, back in the 1900s, maybe Hubble, maybe Grange, okay? And that it's important that they carry on and represent Wheaton Warrenville South, not just for themselves and not just for the current programs they're in, but for all of you guys, okay? And for this class that's coming in, because I can't think of a high school in the state of Illinois that has more tradition than this. And so as the athletic director, I thank you. I congratulate the class coming in. I welcome you. And for us, we put a lot of work in, done a lot of time, and this is kind of like the game. So we get to sit back and we get to hear great stories and hear speeches and hear what's special about Wheaton Warrenville South or Wheaton Central or Wheaton Warrenville or whatever the case may be and how it's special to you. But I thank you for coming. I'm going to pass this off to Coach Harvey, who's going to talk to you a little bit about the history. But once again, thank you, and class welcome.
Welcome. Yeah, my name is Rob Harvey, and I'm a teacher, but I also serve as head girls cross country coach, head girls track and field coach, and now Coach Healy conned me into also being the head boys track and field coach. So along as being on the Hall of Fame too. But I do want to recognize one other person that's here. Daryl Fitz is back there in the orange shirt. Daryl before he retired, was a part of this committee and did a lot of what I'm going to be talking about right now. So Daryl Fitz was a founding member and a very, very important part of this committee. We'd love to have you back, Daryl, if you'd like to come. So, but no, I'm just going to give a very, very quick, a brief history lesson. It's very, very hard to put a ton of, since from 1876 all the way to now, it's hard to put it into 2 minutes, but I'm going to do my darndest. The first graduates were announced in 1882, a total of 2 from Wheaton High School back then. And I think people, I'm down in PE, so I see a lot of people walking around sometimes, especially at football games, homecoming game, and I'm a Wheaton Warrenville grad, you guys probably don't remember. No, I think I just want to impress on everybody here that we really see ourselves as 5 high schools. Okay, I've been here for over 25 years. We really see us as Wheaton High School, Wheaton Community, Wheaton Warrenville, Wheaton Central, and now Wheaton Warrenville South. We don't just see ourselves as Wheaton Warrenville South. So we really embrace the fact that all of these schools are a part of us, and we hold that tradition very, very close to our hearts. But the first high school, again, opened in 1876. First graduating class, name change to Wheaton Central in 1964 when another school, I think on another side of the town, maybe opened up. I don't know if they're a full high school or not, but I think their colors are blue and gold, I think. And then Wheaton Warrenville opened in 1972 on this site. Wheaton Warrenville closed in 1983. Relocated most of those students to Wheaton Central, and then Wheaton Warrenville South opened in 1992 and remains this, and that little Wheaton Warrenville building is somewhere in the middle of the school after all these additions. So we've got over 135 years of athletics. In 2007, our old athletic director, Bob Quinn, called a bunch of us together and said, I want to start this. And we had our first board of directors meeting in 2008, and the committee has largely stayed the same. We've added some new people. Both Casey Gaston Smith and Eric Giltz are Wheaton Warrenville South grads, so we're carrying out that tradition of keeping people close. Our first class was in 2009. All right. And we've continued every year except for 2020 and 2021, and that's why we're having this. This January ceremony will be the only one we do in January. We will continue with the September ones. We do not have a set number of people that we put in, but it is usually between 5 and 7. We have right now, you have to be an athlete or graduated from one of the high schools for at least 10 years. Coaches and school administrators or district administrators are eligible upon retirement. Applications remain active or on file year to year. So we have right now there's actually 35 people in nomination right now, not counting the class. Everything is available on the website. You can go to Wheaton Warrenville South and you can find that. They are due April 15th. They're due April 15th. We do paper, and then we'll also have a Google form available. It's very, very quickly that you guys can do that. So just wanted to give a little brief rundown of that. And now we are going to, Rob Kroenke, since he just coached a game, I got passed off, and now I'm going to be introducing people here. But our first inductee, Gilsey, we can go to the next one. Next one, there we go, is Wheaton Central graduate, that should be 1966. There you go, I'll change that at some point, is Rick Bailey. Rick is going to be presented by Jim Player. So Jim, why don't you come on up here? Mic number 2 here, Mr. Player.
Thank you very much. Okay, yes. I'm not used to speaking in a microphone for the most part. My name is Jim Player, and I'm presenting Rick Bailey for the Hall of Fame Award that he's being inducted for today. You may or may not know my name, but I'm an original Warrenville native here, and I played with Rick in Warrenville grade school for 5 years before he went to Wheaton High School. So our record back then and our accomplishments back then were also part of Rick's career. So this is for about his high school career. So we had a record of 47-3 as far as our record there for home school, an undefeated season the very last time. Rick was always interested in playing basketball from 4th grade on. And if you have to know, Rick was known for a couple of things, and mainly because of his height and his jumping ability, but also for basketball for his exceptional defensive ability. So the teams found out in the state tournaments that we got involved with in '66 how good a player Rick really was and is. Rick is being awarded for the years he was in high school, so from 1962 to 1966. And he's being awarded here for both 4 years of varsity basketball play with the letters awarded there and 2 years of varsity letters for cross country. And he looked forward to basketball season by going to cross country and becoming involved with that. And I will read his accomplishments. Oh, first of all, I should say, when I say it, he was known for his height and his jumping ability. I have to mention something. There's a little short story about being in 5th grade with him. Rick at the time was about 5'4", 5'7". I was short, about 4'10". And I had to help Rick out with high jumping. And one day after school, we both went to the high jump pit, and he said, put up the bar, and I kept on putting up and up and up, and finally got up to 5 feet 2 inches tall. Rick was 5'4", 5'7". He cleared that bar by about 3 inches by going over it in 5th grade for that high. So you knew his jumping ability was there. And then with the height, he intimidated everybody. So, and then besides that, he was just fast. So cross country was another thing which he could do, and he did it excellently. So let me read the accomplishments, is why I'm here and why he's being considered and is being inducted into the Hall of Fame. Okay, let me put my glasses on for my reading glasses, because I'm at the age right now. And Rick wanted me to nominate him, and I had never seen Rick. He was living in Joplin, Missouri at the time, which was in 2018. And I got in touch with him, and he said, that was 42 years, so I hadn't been around him for 42 years. And he said, Jim, would you please see if you can nominate me? I said, yes. And then he said, boy, I really want to get into being a Hall of Fame. That's really what I want. And the first year came, and it didn't happen. Rick took it in stride. And he said to me, well, on the telephone, I guess I got to stay alive another year. So it happened, but Rick didn't make it. So I am now speaking on behalf of Rick Bailey for his induction into the Hall of Fame here at Wheaton, Warrenville South and Wheaton District. Rick was the honorable mention, and he gave me all of this information besides the press clippings that deal with the basketball games and everything. So he was the honorable mention for Prep All-American basketball player in 1966. He also was involved with the basketball yearbook in 1966 as one of the 100 best basketball or high school cagers in America. He was voted next on the Basketball Freshman of the Year of DuPage County by DuPage County Press newspaper from 1962 to 63. And next awarded he was awarded was Chicago Tribune's High School Basketball All-Star of Upstate Conference for 3 times, which is 63, 64, 64, 65, and 65, 66. Next award was for the actual Upstate All-Conference Award basketball team for 3 times. Again, 63, 64, 64, 65, 65, 66, with a unanimous selection 2 times in 1964, 65, 66. We, as a team, the Tigers, were the Upstate 8 basketball team conference champions in 1966. For the Illinois State basketball tournament itself in 66, and some people do remember this, we went through the regionals, the sectionals, the super sectional, and so forth to get there. And we came up as the person, or the team that was in the super sectional, which lost out to Thornton, the eventual state champion, by 4 points. Rick was really a cog in that game for keeping us close and helping us to get a chance to win. Rick was also selected by the Illinois High School All-State basketball team in 1966. From there, Rick was like other people, was going on to different things, and Rick was hoping for scholarships, to college, but he ended up with a scholarship for a junior college. So he went out of the state to the Independence Junior College in Independence, Kansas, where he played 1 year, 66, 67, and he was all-conference first-team selection in the Kansas Jayhawk JUCO Conference, or Junior College Conference, in 66, 67. And basketball tri-champions for JUCO College in 1966, 67. He was also involved with the U.S. Army basketball team because he enlisted in the U.S. Army after he didn't finish college at the time. And he went to So he was a member of our veterans as far as the military and the Army, and he was a member of the 4th Army, Fort Hood Special Services Team in 1969-70, and he was awarded then for the 4th Army U.S. All-Army Team in Fort Hood in 69-70. So that is his basketball accomplishments, for what he accomplished in his lifetime, what he was trying to be doing, and helping out Wheaton and helping out, other teams along the way. He spent, let's say, 2 years here in the cross-country team, being on the varsity team there, and he also was a member of the 65-66 Upstate 8 football team that we had there, which we were champions of too. So one thing he wanted me to really mention is that when we were going to school in Wheaton from Warrenville, we had no kind of service to get us from Warrenville to Wheaton and back again. So Rick said, please, Jim, make this known that I was instrumental, Rick Bailey was instrumental in getting the school bus instituted for Wheaton Warrenville athletes to ride home after athletic practices in 63, 64, so they can, go back and forth and be able to, have a family life along with athletic life. And one of the things which is an outstanding comment by his own coach, Al Doom, which he spent 4 years with, who he spent 4 years with, he said in 1966, Rick Bailey is, quote, the best rebounder in the state of Illinois in 1965-66. So we were fortunate in being teammates and classmates and friends and so forth like this, and having coaches and everybody awarded, and it was like everybody says, a team effort for, the benefit of everybody. So I appreciate you for, in Rick's behalf, of his induction into the Hall of Fame. Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, let's do that now.
Okay. In Rick's behalf, he didn't really have anybody to come here from where he lived in Joplin, Missouri. So, on behalf of awarding this, for Rick's behalf, we're going to have our representative from the Historical Society, Marty Rogers, come up here and receive the award that Rick would be giving.
Our next inductee is Mr. Barry Brennan. He will be presented by his good friend and fellow inductee, Mr. Ken Geppinger. A bit like this. A little bit straight into it.
I feel, can you hear me?
Test.
Could you hear him? Okay. I feel uniquely qualified to present Barry Brennan into the Wheaton Warrenville South Hall of Fame. Barry and I have been close friends for nearly 50 years, have taught and coached at 4 different schools. There was even a time where we lived right across the street from each other, which was great because our kids kind of grew up together and are close friends to this day with their families. And it was a nice benefit for me also that, as a lot of you know, Barry can be pretty vocal when it comes to sports. And on a nice fall Sunday afternoon, I could get all kinds of work done out in the yard and know exactly how the Bears were doing that day just from the yelling I could hear from across the street and so forth. So just an added benefit. But Barry's journey here tonight began at York High School, where he lettered in basketball under the coaching of Dick Campbell, who was a legendary coach there. He then went on to letter in basketball and track at Elmhurst College. His loyalty to Elmhurst is still there today. When he retired from teaching here in District 200, he joined the football staff at Elmhurst College and did a tremendous job there, to the point where there's even a Barry Brennan Award that's given every year to a football player at Elmhurst that achieved in the classroom and on the field. He taught math and coached in Wheaton for 33 years. And although we're primarily recognizing Barry for his achievements coaching basketball, it should be noted that he coached football in the district here for 30 years. As head sophomore coach at Wheaton Central and Wheaton Warrenville South, I know all the varsity coaches were grateful to the job that Barry, along with Jim Allured and Bob Greenlee, did for many, many years in preparing those kids for the varsity level. Barry didn't just all of a sudden become the varsity coach in basketball. He coached at the 7th grade, 8th grade, freshman, sophomore, and JV level before he became the varsity coach at Wheaton Warrenville High School. He brought fundamentals from every one of those levels, and his amazing stress on those fundamentals allowed his athletes to to reach their full potential. I think it's significant that there are 11 members of this current Hall of Fame that played varsity basketball under Barry Brennan, including Scott Sonnenberg, who eventually became the captain of Division I San Jose State, and Eric Channing, who is still to this day the leading scorer in the history of New Mexico State University. Barry's coaching stats are impressive. 254 games won at Wheaton Warrenville, Wheaton Central, and Wheaton Warrenville South, including 7 regional championships, 3 conference championships, including the 1996 undefeated champs. I know he's also proud of his 1998 team that won the Jack Tosh Holiday Tournament at his alma mater, York High School. His respect from his coaching peers is evidenced by his membership in the Sun-Times All-Area Selection Committee. He was selected to coach the North team in the Illinois Basketball Coaches Association All-Star Game in 2002. He was selected as the DVC Coach of the Year on 3 different occasions. I know another legacy that Barry is very proud of is that his kids, Joe, Casey, and Colleen, have all just coincidentally coached basketball in their teaching careers. So Barry, congratulations.
Hand this to him right here. Just take it back.
Oh. Does it work? It works. Okay. Thanks, Gepper. Thanks to the committee. This is an honor that is just incredible. I've been to a lot of these as a presenter and as a fan, and it just never gets old. This is such a great place to work. I want to thank my family. We're all here tonight. My wife, Carol, who's been to more basketball and football games than I can imagine. And we've been married 54 years. Give him a wave, Carol, will you please? Give him a wave. Very nice. 5.5 years ago, Carol was diagnosed with a brain tumor. And we sat in the room together when the doctor left, and we had talked about going to Ireland for years, and but we never really did anything about it. And so the first thing she says to me after the doctor walks out of the room and she's been diagnosed with a brain tumor is, "I want you to go to Ireland." Me. And I said, "I'm not going anywhere without you." Well, she had surgery. They got all the tumor out. It was benign, and here she is today. What's interesting is the doctor who did the surgery, his kids went to Wheaton Warrenville South High School. How cool is that? And the last time we met him, she has an MRI once a year. to make sure everything's okay. And the guy says to us, because we've been going once a year for 5 years, he says, would you like to come next year, or would you want to wait 2 years? It was pretty cool news, you know, so we said, we'll take it 1 year at a time. But my kids are also here, all 3 of them. Joe is a history teacher at Neuqua Valley High School, been teaching for 30 years, teaches the AP government class in U.S. history. He announces the basketball and football games at Neuqua High School. Very proud of him. Casey is here. Casey is a middle school speech pathologist, and her kids not only get speech help from her, but also get help just adjusting to junior high school and middle school life. And so she does a great job with her kids. And Joe's wife, Monica, is here, along with our granddaughter, Carson, who's a student at Concordia University in River Forest. And Casey is here with her husband, Andy. They're both graduates of the first class of Wheaton Warrenville South High School in 1993. And so I'm honored to have them here. And my grandkids, Tate and Remy, are here. And they're both students at Hubble Middle School, and they're going to be Tigers in just a matter of time. And finally, Colleen is here. Colleen is a special ed teacher at St. Charles North High School. And she and her friend got together with a Polaris club that gets her special ed kids mixed with the regular students at St. Charles North High School, and they do all kinds of things together. They go to games, they go to dances, they have lunch together, and it's just been a great program to help not only her kids, but also the kids that work with their kids at the same time. So I'm very honored to have my family here tonight. They're very, very, very special to me. I want to thank Martha Bowser, who was my first person who hired me as a teacher back in 1969 at what was then Bauer Junior High School, and it's now Bauer Elementary School. She stuck her neck out for me, and I really appreciate that. It was a great school. It was 250 kids in the school, and you knew everybody. As a teacher and coach, you literally knew everybody there. I want to thank Harold Burston, who was the first principal, the only principal really, of Wheaton Warrenville High School. He hired me in 1978 to be a math teacher and coach. I want to thank Rich Jerem, who's in the Hall of Fame. He was a varsity basketball coach here at the time, and he was a very good role model for me as far as my development as a coach. And I also want to thank Jim Humay, who was the athletic director here when he hired me as a basketball coach in 1982 to be the head coach. I want to thank Pat Welch. Where's Pat? Pat Welch is here. He was my first assistant basketball coach at Wheaton Warrenville High School, and he's a recent Hall of Fame inductee. Came all the way up from Tennessee to be at this event today, and I'm really, it's special that you're here, big guy. I want to thank Hank Schwabauer and his wife. Hank, wave your hand back there. Hank was a high school teammate of mine back at York back in the early 60s, and really special that he's here today also. At Wheaton Central High School, I was hired as a basketball coach and math teacher in 1986 when Don McGee stepped down. And I want to thank Gene Probst, who was the principal, and Ross Trumper, who was the athletic director, for giving me a second chance to be a head coach back in '86. Ken Geppinger mentioned Jim Elliott and Bob Greenlee. And ironically, not only do they do stats with me still for our football team here to this day, they also do the scorebook for the girls and boys basketball games here at South. So we just we can't get away from this place, I guess. But Jim Elliott and Bob Greenlee and I coached sophomore football together for 16 years. And as I said, we still do the varsity stats every Friday night. I want to thank John Thorne, who was at Wheaton Central High School when I was hired there for hiring me as a sophomore football coach. I want to thank Chuck Baker for his support. Chuck is, where are you at, Chuck? Is he hiding someplace? Oh, he ditched out. That's too bad, Chuck. Okay. He's the best principal I ever worked for. He's the last principal I worked for. He was such a good principal for our school. I want to thank the entire Wheaton Warrenville South staff for their support, not only when I was teaching, but also in years since. I want to thank my pal Ken Geppinger for being such a good friend and great assistant coach, too. I want to thank John Stacy and Matt Stellwagen for being great assistant coaches, too. And then finally, the players. We've been so blessed with great players here over the years, and still today. We had all-state players, all-area players, all-conference players. But it's the players who were backups that I want to really talk about. They're the ones that are unsung heroes. They don't get much credit. The only people that know they're moms and dads and aunts and uncles are in the stands. And they really did a lot for my teams in terms of getting them ready for their games each week. They were just tremendous. So I want to thank you again. This is a great honor that I will never forget as long as I live, Thank you very, very much.
Yep, come on up. I'm gonna keep you guys up here for about 20 minutes. And now we'll have Barry Brennan induct Ken Geppinger.
It isn't very often that I get to introduce my bestest buddy as a Hall of Famer, but today is that day. So it's very special. Ken Geppinger was a three-sport letterman at Hinsdale Central High School, cross country, basketball, and baseball. He was named a distinguished alumnus at Western Illinois University, Department of History. We first met at a teacher institute back in the early 70s at Wheaton North High School. I was teaching at Bauer Junior High at the time, and he was teaching at Wheaton North. Just a few years later, I look out my window at school, and I see Ken Geppinger walking into the building at Bauer Junior High, and I wonder, what's going on here? It turns out he was going to work half day at Bauer Junior High and half day at Wheaton Warrenville High School as history teacher. During the time he was at Bauer, I coached him into coaching the 7th grade basketball team. He will tell you, explain when it comes up, but he had a hard time saying no when people asked him to coach, and he didn't say no to me, thank goodness. He was department chairman in social studies for 20 years, selected by the seniors to give graduation speeches 4 different times. He coached from 1970 to 2003 in basketball, baseball, tennis, wrestling, and girls golf. You might be the first inductee that's ever had that on the resume. I coached basketball with Ken at Bauer, at Wheaton Central, and at Wheaton Warrenville South. Ken started the girls golf program at Wheaton Central back in 1986. He had a winning record of over 17 years of coaching girls golf of 191 and 71, a tremendous 72% winning percentage. He took 4 teams downstate in girls golf, and 3 of them finished in the top 10. 18 of his golfers participated in state tournament. Many of his golfers went on to play in college, and one particular golfer who's in our Hall of Fame here, Jenna Pearson, was the University of South Carolina Female Athlete of the Year, and later the only woman to win the Illinois Women's Open as both amateur and professional. 14 of his golfers were selected all-conference, and 3 times he was selected all-area coach of the year. There's one thing I'd like to add. When Ken and I coached together, we did a lot of laughing. There's a lot of stuff we did that I thought was pretty funny. One little tidbit I'll share. This guy called the hamburger caper. He and I were driving down to Champaign for the state basketball tournament just to be spectators. We thought, we'll stop at a hamburger stand. And we go in. We're going to eat on the way down. We're not going to sit down and eat. We're just going to eat in the car on the way down. So I come back to the car, and I forget, hey, we forgot straws for our drinks. So I go back inside. I get a straw. And by this time, I'm pretty hungry. And I'm like JoJo the circus boy on Christmas morning opening up gifts. I'm just ripping. I ripped this package of this hamburger open, and there's a huge bite taken out of the hamburger. I said, what the heck? This is my hamburger. Now, there were 2 suspects I narrowed it down to right away. One was the chef who made this hamburger, and one was this guy right here, who's getting inducted next. But I narrowed it down. The chef couldn't have done it because he's probably sick of looking at hamburgers all day long, so I figured it was him. But we laughed probably most of the way down to Champaign, and when we talked about that incident, we still laugh. So let me introduce you to my good friend and the next inductee, Mr. Ken Geppinger.
Well, as Barry mentioned, I'm up here because I couldn't say no. I mean, that combination of sports that I coach, it sounds like kind of a coaching decathlon or something. And it was really because when athletic directors would approach me and say, we really need somebody to coach a certain sport, I just always said yes. It was the sports, and it was even in, I remember Joe Gerace, who's in the Hall of Fame for softball, he was a speech coach, and he approached me about, could I coach the extemporaneous speakers on the speech team? Yeah, why not? I always say yes, and I did on that. But I'm glad I said yes to all those various sports and activities because I got something out of it. It was very rewarding. But the reason I'm here tonight is because Athletic Director Ross Trumper approached me about kind of restarting the girls' golf program because we ended up having, the program had a couple girls golfers here and there, but it kind of fizzled out. But he said, we've got 4 girls interested in golf. Would you coach them? And I said, sure. I always said yes, so I did again and said yes. And then I remember Ross saying, be nice to them, because if one of them quits, you don't have a team, because you had to have 4 kids. So that seemed like a fairly modest goal for a season, just be nice. And I was, and we made it through that first year. Ironically, it's 2 incidents from that first year. That was a first winless season. We didn't come close to winning a meet that year. I had 4 girls, talent-wise closer to 3, because one was an absolute beginner. But she worked hard, and we were glad to have her. But we start out, we go over to our first meet. It was a triangular with New Trier and Naperville North, both of whom were returning from the previous year, the state tournament. And we pull up, and they have their matching golf bags and their matching sweats, and we didn't have any of that. But off they went. They played their 9 holes. And it turns out they come back in, kind of dragging in, but one girl was kind of up. And her name was Julie Schoonmaker, and I went up and said, Julie, how'd it go? And she said, I had fun. And great, what'd you shoot? And she said, 78. Now, this is 9 holes. And I didn't say anything, but the look on my face must have conveyed something along the lines of, how could that have been fun? Because she repeated it and said, no, I did, I had fun, because I got better. And the last 2 holes were my best 2 holes. And I'm looking forward to practice tomorrow. And I thought, Julie, you're onto something. So that's kind of what we did. Our program for the next 17 years was we're going to have fun, and we're going to get better. And that's exactly what happened. And then the other incident was like 2 meets later. We're playing Hinsdale Central, and you can imagine they had a well-established program. And the 4 girls get out of the bus, and we walk over, and the Hinsdale parents are milling around. And as a Chicago sports fan, I look over and immediately recognize Stan Mikita from the Blackhawks. And he's one of the parents. His daughter's going to be teeing off soon. And I'm kind of starry-eyed. Wow, this is Stan Mikita. And then all of a sudden I look, and he's walking over to me. And oh my gosh. And he comes over and he says, hi, Coach, my name's Stan. And that's always a little awkward. You don't say, no kidding, or something. I know that or something. But anyway, hi, my name's Ken. And he says, so how's your team doing? And I said, well, then I explained, we're just getting started, and I've got 4 good girls that are, working hard, and we're just hoping to improve this year and so forth. And he says, and this is kind of strange as it turned out, he says, well, I'll tell you what's probably going to happen. Next year, you're going to have twice as many girls out. And then you're going to start having, what's probably going to happen also, is you'll have the younger sisters of those kids are going to be out for your team. And then you'll be off to the races. And so he says, good luck, Coach. And thanks, Stan. And off he goes. Well, the next year, we had 8 girls out. And I'm thinking, that's kind of strange. And then all of a sudden, in that year, we also started the string of the sisters that he somehow knew was going to happen. And we started the string. We had the Hetherington sisters, the Steeles, the Babareks, the Wangs, the Simons, the Ilifs, 3 of them, the Browns, the Youngs, the Escobedos, the Frattingers, and the Connollys. So Stan knew more than just hockey, as it turned out. So over the next 17 years, we continued to have fun and get better with numerous trips, downstate and winning tournaments and meets and so forth. And it's not strange to know, if you've coached, that the more we won, the more fun we had. I mean, that's just the way that kind of goes. And so we were having a lot of fun. All right, now the kind of success we had wouldn't have been possible with some of the people I'd like to thank here tonight. First of all, the girls and their parents. I was blessed with girls that represented our school so well. They were very coachable. Not all parents of other teams are the same way our parents were. They were always supportive of me. And other teams, sometimes there's pressure on the coach, pressure on their daughters and so forth, and I never really had to deal with that. And all those girls have a story. You know, I'm having my daughter Ashley on my team and as one of my captains and so forth is a memory I'll always treasure. And walking in here tonight, Jacqueline Gagnon Sinclair is here, and she's here for Annie's induction. But the minute you see somebody, every one of those girls has a story. And I saw Jacqueline, and the first thing I thought of was Jacqueline could really hit a golf ball. And at Hinsdale South, just like it was yesterday, I remember she hits a drive, and within 4 seconds, the coach for Hinsdale South goes from, she's going to like that, that's way out there, good Lord. You know, and so Jacqueline, thanks for that memory. It was a good one. But they all have a story like that. And again, the principals, you know, Chuck Baker and Gene Probst were supportive. Lenore Wilcox was certainly a big help to me. And of course, Ross Trumper, who got me to start the program, and I said yes to. And I don't want to overlook Wendy Schnurstein, who was in the athletics director's office all those years. She did so much work. Things were so organized, and she just made my life so much easier. When the program grew, we needed assistant coaches. Brian Torina stepped in and did a great job and helped contribute to our first team that went downstate. Shauna Williams, who I know is here tonight, was a great help and ended up helping with the 3 more teams that we got down there. Shauna took over the program after I retired and kept the program going in the right direction. And it eventually led to Art Tang and John Ratkovich, who I have to mention, who then took the program to something we couldn't have even dreamed of. That in 2016, the program got better and better to the point where they ended up winning the state championship in 2016. So from those 4 girls, and next thing you know, that program at Wheaton South are the state champs in girls golf. And I couldn't have been any prouder of that than if I had still been coaching. And then finally, again, my family. You know, I love you all, and I thank you for your support. I've got, you know, my sister came up here with her daughter-in-law from Normal, Illinois. My kids came in from as far from Connecticut, San Diego, even Arrowhead right over here. So it was great to have all of them join me, and certainly my wife, Jeannie. Any man or woman who's a head coach knows that there's a spouse back home that's probably picking up the slack and doing a lot of things while we're spending time with other people's kids and so forth. That was certainly the case in my situation. So Jeannie, thanks for all the love and support. Couldn't have done it without you. And it somehow makes it, I don't know, more special to be inducted into the Hall of Fame at the same high school where all 3 of my kids, Angie, Ashley, and Ian, were all multiple varsity letter winners at the same school. And we've got 2 grandkids, Mia and Logan, that next year will be Tigers. So we'll see how that continues. So this is a tremendous thrill for me, and I just am very, very grateful. Thank you.
Barry messed up on his, so he wants to redo it.
Sorry. I forgot to mention Colleen's husband, Mike. Mike, can you wave your hand back there, please? Mike is a retired teacher in St. Charles. He's here tonight. And my granddaughter, Kylie. Wave your hand, Kylie. Yeah, there you are. She's a special ed major at Eastern Illinois University. Go Panthers. Sorry, guys.
All right. Another picture. Have we done this before? Yeah.
Was the timing good?
The timing's perfect. Now, we'd like to induct Annie Luhrsen, and she's going to be presented by her mother, Mary Ann Luhrsen. speak directly straight into it, not on this side. Thank you.
Thank you to the Wheaton Warrenville South Administration, Athletic Department, Mike Healy, and Coach Bill Schreier for recognizing Annie. I'm honored to present Annie as a member of the class of 2023. Annie was fortunate to be a part of Coach Bill Schreier's tremendously successful volleyball program from 2004 to 2007. A special thank you to Coach Schreier for all the support and guidance he provided. Annie's been recognized many times for her accomplishments on the volleyball court over the years, but what none of the medals, trophies, or record books show is what's contributed to her success. Her intense competitiveness, persistent efforts to improve, but most of all, her fierce dedication to her teammates and the team. Annie would be the first to say that any of the awards she's received and the honor you're giving her today are shared with all her teammates. And on all of her teams, from middle school to college, we watched Annie endeavor to make every single player feel valued. Annie knew that the things outside the court mattered just as much as what happened on the court. So at home, Dane and I were often witness to many activities that seemingly had nothing to do with volleyball. Cutting hair ribbons, selecting quotations, writing letters, making pictures, picture frames, t-shirts, crafts, organizing sleepovers, all sorts of team bonding events. We didn't always know the reason behind these hours spent, but we knew that they mattered. And how they mattered was not for us to say. After all, we were not her teammates. While we saw the crafting at home and the wins and losses on the court, it's her teammates that can truly say what Annie meant to the team. So with help from Wheaton South's own Jackie Wolf Van Heest, a very accomplished volleyball player in her own right, we gathered some thoughts from teammates throughout Annie's career. I'd like to share a few. Taylor Onion, a college teammate, wrote that Annie is one of the most competitive teammates I've ever had. Her diligence and determination made us better in the gym every day. Colleen Ward, also a college teammate, said, she's a selfless athlete and person, and she always looked for ways to encourage and support her teammates. Annie led by example and was an extremely hard worker. I always trusted her to give her best effort. And Michelle Barch-Hackley from U of I said, Annie's always searching to be better for everyone around her. She always wants to help and find solutions for us. Becca Zlabus DeMoss, a teammate from Wheaton South, said, Annie always was a hard worker and gave her best in the gym. Her high volleyball IQ, competitiveness, and passion for the game led to her great success. And finally, Jackie, who played with Annie in high school and in college, shared, Annie never craved the spotlight to be on her, but put everyone else on the team before herself. She's the definition of selfless, and that carries over into how she lives her life. This past week, I was going through some old things, and I came across some letters that Annie wrote to me during our high school volleyball days about working hard, staying the course, and trusting that results will come. She's always had a positive, encouraging influence on my life. Annie, I speak on behalf of your husband, Ed, dad, siblings, extended family, friends, coaches, and teammates in congratulating you on your induction into the Wheaton Warrenville South Athletic Hall of Fame.
Bear with me for a second. Hello, everyone. It's an honor to stand in front of such esteemed company tonight. When I was told I would have 10 minutes to speak, I was a bit perplexed as to how I would fill my time. As an audience member, I always like to know where a speech might be going, so I'll do my best to set expectations now. We'll have 3 chapters: a reflection on the place and the culture of excellence that's embedded at Wheaton Warrenville South, a reflection of the people, and I'll wrap things up with a few thoughts on what all this means for the future. I'll try to stick to the stories and hopefully my little vignettes. If they don't make you laugh, they'll at least keep you interested. The place. Growing up only a few miles away from this high school, I have vivid early childhood memories of hearing the echoes of the marching band at halftime and the PA announcer pronouncing another Tiger win on Friday nights as I was going to bed. Once we were old enough, my parents would drag me along with my 3 siblings to the football games. At first, I found them incredibly boring, but our favorite babysitter at the time was star wide receiver Eric McGoey, and the team was good. So we would go and cheer him and his team on. Before long, a cluster of kids would gather behind the home bleachers, and a game of touch football, more exciting to me than the one being played only 20 yards away, would develop. I was an incredibly shy kid, so my older brother would drag me along and make sure I got in the game. There was never a question as to whether any of us girls could participate if we wanted to. My QB told me to just run as fast as I could, and once I was open, look for the ball. Since I was a girl and one of the younger kids out there, no one saw me as a threat, and it was easy for me to get open. That moment of pure, unadulterated joy when the ball landed so perfectly in my hands, sticking to my fingers just right, and I caught my first pass, forged in me a desire to recreate that feeling over and over again. We'd have the time of our lives out there living our own mini championship dreams until the game would be interrupted sometime in the third quarter when various bedtimes would be enforced and our parents decided we needed to go home. I actually remember that 1998 season pretty well. My family had gone down to Atlanta, Georgia to visit my grandparents for Thanksgiving. My parents had followed the team pretty closely and they'd gone undefeated in the regular season. So when they heard that the Tigers were in the state championship, my dad somehow found a sports bar that figured out how to connect to the Chicago-based networks, and we, on an incredibly blurry feed, witnessed the first Tiger State Championship. Although this was not their first state championship, they'd already won 3 that decade and would go on to win 3 more in the next. It was a culture of success, and I was transfixed. I learned at a young age that although a team that had a few superstars and each player's role, whether seemingly large or small, was essential for that team to reach the pinnacle of high school athletic success. Pairing this education with my innate competitiveness, even as a young kid, I wanted to achieve those same things. I'll be honest, I never caught the itch to play any more football beyond recess and those Friday nights behind the bleachers. As a matter of fact, it was actually soccer, not volleyball, that was my first love. As a 90s kid, I idolized Mia Hamm and Brandy Chastain. In the summers, I would attend Guy Calipari's Club International Soccer Camp, where I quickly learned that as one of the tallest kids with Betty Spaghetti legs, I was never going to be the quickest kid out on the soccer field, and decided to focus on the more technical skills. Thinking about it now, we were asked to fill out a survey prior to the ceremony, and one of the questions was whether or not I held any athletic records at the high school. I'm pretty sure that any volleyball record I had has likely been broken by now, but there's a chance that I still hold the 7 to 8-year-old soccer juggling record. Those were memorable summers, and after being coached by some high school helpers, I now had some female athletes to look up to. During the spring club soccer season, Guy and my coach, my dad, coordinated a big sister, little sister program where my teammates and I were paired with various athletes in the Wheaton South soccer program. They wrote us letters of encouragement and gave us Gatorades, power bars, and those hair ties with our numbers puffy painted on them that were all the rage 20 years ago before our big tournament. We reciprocated and cheered them on at the big rivalry game versus Wheaton North and were able to visualize ourselves out there one day. At the end of the season, we had a pasta dinner and I apologize. At the end of the season, we had a pasta dinner at the high school and we got to meet our big sisters in person. Looking back, these experiences were incredibly formulative in my sporting journey. They made sport so joyful and success so accessible to me at such a young and impressionable age, and they all happened on these grounds. However, at that point, 10-year-old me was already taller than my big sister. I slowly started to think that there may be other sports where I could better leverage my innate physical strengths. At around the same time I was questioning my love of soccer, my older sister started playing the sport called volleyball. Based on my initial observations, it was good if you were tall, and what most of the sport looked to entail was hitting the ball as hard as you could at your opponent. What more could an introverted kid with a burning desire to compete want? I got signed up for my first Tiger volleyball summer camp, and by the end of the 2 weeks, either Schreier or Knicker had taught me how to overhand serve, and they gave everyone popsicles on the last day, so I felt like I'd found the sport for me. As a middle schooler, I got really into volleyball, and for those who have experienced teaching and or raising middle schoolers, you know what I mean when I say I got into it. Those ages of 12 to 14, when a kid starts to realize that they're their own person and they start thinking independently, always seem to result in some mild obsession with whatever their current interests may be. And mine happened to be volleyball, the trumpet, and Lord of the Rings. So I bet you can all guess how that ended up for me socially. But in retrospect, I think that excelling in the gym gave me the confidence to stand on my own 2 feet, and not succumb to the pressure of following whatever was cool or trendy at the time. At the same time, I watched my older sister and brother go through the ups and downs of high school and their chosen sports. All in all, it seemed unquestionable that the good outweighed the bad, and I could not wait to step foot into WWS. I, however, didn't have the sort of high school glory days experience. To be honest, I actually dreaded going to school most mornings. I was still a pretty introverted kid, and between the slow realization that I would not be able to maintain a perfect GPA and navigating the maze of teenage friendships and relationships, the hours between 7:20 and 2:15 were filled with a fair amount of anxiety. But when the bell rang at 2:15 and I was off to the gym to start getting ready for practice, none of those worries mattered. The gym was always a safe place to escape the stresses of the day and focus on the simple act of keeping a volleyball inside the 18 by 9 meter box and off the ground on my side of the court. It was a place where I could excel and hopefully contribute to the culture of success that I had witnessed for so many years. In my time as a Tiger volleyball player, we unfortunately never made it to the big dance. Our team was incredibly talented, but we always seemed to end up in what one could argue is the toughest regional in the state, and we just couldn't put the pieces together at the right time. When you've put in the time, worked as hard as you possibly can, and come close to accomplishing your goals, but don't quite reach the summit, it can break a person, or it can build an insatiable hunger within. I was definitely in the latter court, and the sting of those losses continued to act as a motivator throughout college and beyond. To wrap up this chapter on place, I have a story about my husband. He's a professor of sport management, and in his first job post-graduation, he was tasked with teaching the history of U.S. sport. Sounds like a great gig, right? The only problem is that he was born and raised an hour south of London, where he grew up on cricket and rugby instead of baseball and football. A bit stressed the Sunday before classes started, my dad asked him what the first chapter covered, and before long a reference to the Galloping Ghost was made. It made me smile to think that the place that had helped shape me is rooted in such a tradition of success that my husband now teaches his students about it in his college sport history classes. On to the people, and I put this second because I wanted to at least get halfway through the speech without crying. This place carries a rich history within its walls, but it's the people who must share that history and pass down the lessons of those that came before them. A Hall of Fame award may recognize one person on a plaque, but I think it's really more a reflection of the culmination of the diverse experiences that a person has had within their family, friends, coaches, and community on their particular journey, which culminates in some level of success. These are my people. Someone was asking who the best athlete in our family is, and I'm not sure if my siblings or dad will find this controversial, but I'm pretty sure it's my mom. She's quick, coordinated, and has incredible spatial awareness. She's 60 and does CrossFit a few times a week and can still outrun her nieces and nephews in a rousing game of tag. However, she was raised in an era when her school had one girls' basketball team that fielded 8 players, and her chances were numbered when the coach's daughter played her position. It does piss me off a little bit to think about the missed opportunities for the generation before me, but I can't express in words the gratitude I feel for the women that paved the way for the copious opportunities that I've been provided. It was probably a bit hard to hear your daughters come home from practice and complain about a sport that you would have loved to have had the chance to play. So thank you for your patience, for never pushing too hard, but always pushing me enough to stay in the game. Thank you for the countless pasta dinners, always volunteering to be team mom, and for always reminding me that I was enough no matter the score. My dad was my first coach. Soccer, as you're probably not surprised, and he made it fun. We never stood around at practice, and everyone always had a ball at their feet. He would invent the most creative games to make sure we never got bored, and we always got better. At home, the summer rule was that you could play in the backyard until it got dark. So since we had a big soccer net in our backyard, the neighborhood kids would come over, and my dad would officiate our World Cup game until the sun went down. He always knew what to say after a tough loss, which was usually nothing, followed by blasting Don McLean's American Pie on repeat until we got home. And in a world where some parents, especially dads, still treat their kids differently based on gender, that was a foreign concept in our household. We were raised to believe that we could achieve whatever we set our minds to. It helped me athletically, and now as I work in an industry where I often find myself as the only female in a meeting, I've never felt out of place. So thank you for being my first coach, for igniting in me a passion to play, and for believing in me unflinchingly. My parents almost never missed a game. Whether we were home or away, they found a way for at least one of them to be there. And with 4 kids on vastly different schedules, and then in college where conferences are no longer defined by geography, it was a Herculean feat. So Mom and Dad, it meant the world to know that there was always a smiling face in the crowd. If you ask my siblings, they'll probably tell you I complain too much about being a middle child. And growing up, that was a genuine complaint, but now it's pretty much all in jest. And I'm grateful for my place in the birth order. Katie, the oldest, was the family guinea pig, forced to pave a way for all of us. Although we had very different interests academically, she had impeccable taste when it came to sports. So when she decided to try a new sport, we all followed in lockstep. When she settled on volleyball, I did the same. Thank you for opening the doors for all of us and showing us all it was possible to play a sport at the collegiate level, which we all did. Thanks for never making me feel like the annoying younger sister, even when I followed you to U of I. For being a shoulder to cry on and the voice of reason when dealing with the innate drama each season might bring, and for being such a supportive fan as I finished out my career in your own backyard. John, the oldest boy but a fellow middle, I know it was probably hard for you to be nice to your nerdy younger sister who couldn't stand the idea of being late for school as we drudged through 2 feet of snow after having to park up near the church off of Durfee. Thank you for challenging me to push my limits, for letting me tag along to your ridiculous winter break workouts when we were home on college breaks, like running sprints in half a foot of snow on the south football field in negative temperatures, or endless sprints up the hill at 4 Lakes. And thanks for pushing me to always finish the workout. The discomfort I had in those moments led to resilience during all those 5-set marathon matches we played in college. Eric, the one who bore the brunt of my youthful angst, who was the OG backyard pepper partner, which mostly entailed me bossing you around and yelling at you when you didn't know how to control a volleyball, but eventually, years later, turned into an essential part of our Sunday evenings. I apologize for being a jerk for all those years. Thank you for calling me out on my BS and for always being willing to play. With 4 state championships between football and volleyball, I always thought you'd be the first to be awarded this honor, but I'm sure your time's coming. To my aunts, it's of course always important to have the support of your parents, but there were moments on that path towards adulthood when I'd have a lapse in confidence and would start to question whether they were feeding me lines because they were my parents. When I hit these moments, I always had the reassurance from these incredible women who I admire so greatly. Along with my aunts, I was fortunate to grow up near cousins, aunts, uncles, grandparents, and extended family, always showing up, and many of them here today. So thank you for showing up. I had the fortune of playing alongside some incredibly talented athletes whilst at Wheaton South. In my 4 years as a Tiger, over 80% of our starting lineup each year went on to play volleyball at the collegiate level. Beyond our aspirations for success, we had a fair amount of fun. Even though school started at the insane hour of 7:20 a.m., we would wake up at the crack of dawn to get to Butterfields when they opened at 6 and have game day team breakfasts. I'm not sure whether that ended up negatively impacting us by match time 12 hours later, but I'd like to think that the bonding we did during those meals offset any lack of sleep. And speaking of teammates, we had the fortune in high school of graduating from my little brother as a pepper partner, who was great by all accounts, to probably the best pepper partner I could have ever had in Jackie Wolf Van Heest. We were lucky to continue that partnership on to college for another 4 incredible years. Jackie exemplified what it was to be a great teammate. She often puts others' interests ahead of her own, from picking the smallest room in a 4-bedroom apartment to writing notes on her national championship scouting reports to help me. She was the glue and deserves so much credit for our team's successes. Many teammates come into your life to teach you a lesson for a season, but Jackie, I'm so grateful to call you a teammate and a friend for life. Finally, the coaches. I was fortunate to have more good coaches than bad through my sporting career, and I have to say, after coaching for a few years myself, it's pretty incredible to reflect on what Schreier has built here at Wheaton South. In my time, he assembled a truly all-star coaching staff, with Justice there to add his sage wisdom, Schaefer to bring some fun, Burles to shoot us straight, Virtue to teach us how to set at an elite level, and Knicker there to tell him when he was off base and diffuse all the high school girl drama. Schreier is without a doubt one of the best advocates for all of his athletes. He sought out recognition for those that might not have known how to recognize their own strengths. He made sure we got exposure to college coaches and put in extra hours to assist with our recruiting process, wrote letters of recommendation, and just provided general guidance. But probably the most important for me, Schreier never pushed me to be someone that I wasn't. It probably helped that one of his preferred methods of communication is sarcasm. We definitely vibed on that front. But I was an intense competitor, and many coaches of mine pushed me to hold back some of that fire. I've always been grateful that instead of chipping away at that trait of mine, Schreier instead took more to softly rounding out these rough edges. He embraced my personality for what it was, and if he hadn't done that, I don't think I would have reached the places I did. Now to looking ahead, and I promise we're near the end. To the young faces in the crowd, I hope you remember tonight being something more than a night where you were forced to sit through 2 hours of boring speeches and perhaps rehashing, and instead think of it as opening doors, the opening of a door to you and what you might achieve one day. To the rest of the crowd, as we watch sport today, it at times seems like it becomes a little overbearing, capitalistic, and somewhat out of control. I hope we all remember our own first catch behind the bleachers under the Friday night lights, the big sister who encouraged us to go for the goal, and the coach who helped us grow while embracing our competitive spirit. To the teachers, administrators, and staff who coordinated this lovely evening, thank you so much. They say it takes a village, and I truly believe we have one of the greatest ones here at Wheaton South. Semper Tigris.
Let your mom present that to you. Go out and get a few pictures. That was probably the last one. We'd now like to induct Reilly O'Toole. Presenting him in for induction is his father, Mike. Watch your step there. Directly into that straight ahead.
All right. Good evening. Can you hear me? All right. Like that? Okay. All right, first I'd like to thank the committee and administration of Wheaton Warrenville South for honoring Reilly with this award. It's quite special and something that will last his lifetime. But I think I want to start by talking about the game of basketball and football. They're ultimately the ultimate team sports. So the team itself provides a platform by which somebody can do great things. And I'd like to recognize a lot of Reilly's teammates that showed up today, because I think that tells you a lot about their relationship. And their relationship has withstood all the accomplishments that the team has had, and Reilly himself has had. So I think that without that backdrop, without that support system, Reilly would never be here to get this award. I'd like to make a shout out to his coaches, Coach Healy, for teaching Reilly how to play the game of basketball, for how to be disciplined and how to share the ball. I'd like to shout out to Coach Muhich for all the time he put in helping Reilly become a great quarterback. Without those guys, Reilly wouldn't have accomplished all the things that he accomplished. I also would like to say that Reilly grew up a baller. He was the youngest of our 4 kids. All of our kids were very athletic. He had a brother that was 4 years older, and he would take Reilly out in the driveway. They would play basketball. Reilly could dribble when he was like 3 years old, like you couldn't believe. We would look out there and say, wow, he may have a little bit of skill here. He could throw the football, and every time we would go to a basketball game for his siblings, we'd wonder where Reilly was. He would be in the other gym in a pickup game. If we went to Reagan's football game, Reilly would be off to the side throwing the football with somebody. And so he grew up just loving sports, and he got real joy out of it. But when he came to Wheaton Warrenville South is when he took it to another level. And I think that we can say that the skills that he possessed, there were a lot of us that spent hours in the driveway rebounding for Reilly, or his mom running, catching passes, his sisters catching passes, me catching passes. So there was a lot that went into Reilly becoming who Reilly was. But with all those skills, what I really want to talk about are the intangibles, because I think that's really what makes Reilly who he is. The first word that I jotted down that comes to mind is courage. I don't think Reilly was ever afraid to make that game-winning pass or to make that last shot. He was not fear of failure. He would step up and just face the consequences. And I think that served him well as he went on in his career. I think confidence. He had uncanny confidence. He believed in himself. He believed in his teammates. He believed in his coaches. He believed in the system. That made him a good leader and for everyone on the team to want to follow. He was tremendously loyal. He was loyal to his family, to his teammates, to his coaches, to the system. And I think his friends that are, when I look at his life, I see his friends from his childhood, that they are tight and they show up and they support each other. And I think that's just really a sign of that loyalty that shines through. He is very humble. So with all the awards he gets and all that he's got, it's never gone to his head. He's been grounded and down to earth his whole life. And I think the last thing I'll say is leadership. All of those character traits really show up in his leadership. And I think over his career, that leadership really has shined through. Even at Illinois, his senior year, he ended up captain of the football team, which was elected by all his teammates. And I think that just is a testament to all of those character traits that I just mentioned. He won a lot of awards. I'll tell you some of the things that I remember were the overtime victory against Lombard West in the first state championship, the obvious second state championship his senior year with that unbelievable team that if you read the Tribune, it's arguably rated the best football team in the history of Illinois. He got the Gatorade Player of the Year. He was all-state, all-conference in both football and basketball. And then, of course, he went to Illinois and he met his wife, and they have a beautiful child. So I think his life, it's the life of Reilly. He's done pretty well. So with that, I'd like to introduce Reilly O'Toole.
Thanks, Dad. I got a little teary-eyed there, so hopefully that's not a preview of what's to come. Thank you to the committee, and thank you all for being here. A huge honor, I think, and congrats to all the other honorees. I think we can all agree Wheaton-Warrenville South has a great tradition of athletic excellence, and to be cemented in this wonderful history is extremely humbling. Before I start, just want to recognize 3 people that can't be with us here today that were either great mentors or teammates during my time here. And I'll share some stories, and a couple of them are funny, so hopefully that cheers me up. But Coach Coach England was a basketball assistant here for 12 years, and I got to play for him for 3. Some of my favorite memories were his daily positive attitude. Obviously, basketball being a winter sport, his lips would get blue kind of throughout the season, just something that we always kind of joked about. And then also, every day in practice at a water break, he'd grab a ball, go to the free throw line, and say he hadn't missed a free throw since the 80s. And then would actually shoot the free throw, and I think his percentage was probably in the low teens. But my favorite story, and it's actually in a movie called The Hangover, but we're driving back from a game. Coach Healy's driving the bus, and he kind of looks back. He goes, "Coach England, are we good back there?" Like asking for the blind spot. And he's in like the front row. He doesn't even turn his head. He goes, "Oh yeah, we're good." So Healy switches lanes, and just the car behind us just lays on the horn. So that is just kind of a funny story that I love reminiscing about. Another name, Adam Pike, just recently passed away, but he's just the ultimate Wheaton-Warrenville South supporter. He actually came to my last football game ever at the University of Illinois. He flew down to Dallas after the game, even came out to dinner with my family. And then Titus Davis. Sorry. Titus was a teammate of ours, just passed away recently. But I think he was all the things that are great with high school sports. He had a tough upbringing, utilized his athletic abilities to get a full ride scholarship, and was an integral part to our team's success and mine as a quarterback. Okay, that was tough. Hopefully this is better. I think a great description of my childhood, as my dad kind of touched on, would be summed up by my elementary school gym teacher, Bill Cashin. Anytime you go back to St. Mike's and I'd see him, he'd either tell me or my parents that whenever I was growing up, there was never a time you didn't see me without a basketball or football in my hands. I think two pieces of that statement are perfect. As one, of course, I always love having a ball in my hands, but two, I was just always around at practices, shooting around, just hoping for an opportunity that I might be asked to join in a drill or participate in one of my siblings' practices. I'm the youngest of four, all of which played sports year-round. We certainly kept our parents busy with the countless practices and tournaments. They gave us every possible chance to get better. And while we weren't always overjoyed to get in the extra practice, I think I speak for all of us when we say we appreciate the nudges, constant support, and never-ending guidance to pushing us to be the best. Now having a family of my own, I hope I can give my son every opportunity that you guys gave us. All right, this is my favorite part of the speech, and it's another story. And I think sheds a light into how much pride I take into Wheaton South and growing up in Wheaton. And then also shows how close my friend group is and how much we enjoyed growing up here in Wheaton. So I met my wife second semester, freshman year at the University of Illinois. And throughout our college days, she met many of my high school friends, as I've always referred to them as. While some of them attended Illinois, others were at Iowa, Indiana, either St. Ambrose. But each time we'd get together, she'd get a feel for what some would say an immature sense of humor, but what I would prefer to call it as very unique. So during our first couple years of college, I jokingly told her a story about my high school in Wheaton, Warrenville South, and kind of forgot about it. Fast forward literally 2 years later, my now sister-in-law Lydia was in town, and somehow the topic of Wheaton, Warrenville South, was a topic of conversation. And so I must have just been talking about how great our football teams were, and Alina, my wife, stops the story, and she goes, "Lydia, they literally used to sing and dance in the passing periods like High School Musical. Isn't that insane?" So I forgot I made that joke 2 years later, but the fact that she had that perception of myself and kind of the people I grew up with, and she thought it was real, I think is a testament to the time I had in Wheaton. I'm a firm believer having a great support system, and I think being a product of your environment holds true when thinking of growing up in Wheaton and attending South. As I mentioned, I have a great group of friends, many of which are here, but also extremely fortunate to have many fantastic coaches and teachers. I have such an appreciation and respect for the volunteer coaches that sacrifice so much of their time to me to be heavily involved in not only my development, but the hundreds of teammates I had during my 4 years at South. So thank you to all the coaches I had during my time. Taking time away from your own family help us prepare and compete each week was something we may not have quite understood at the time, but as we've gotten older, we appreciate your investment. Obviously, don't have a ton of time. We had a lot of coaches, but the ones that I spent a lot of time with, I just want to shout out Coach Stellwagen, Coach Matt Alley, Coach Matt Sinclair, Joe Kish, and Coach Doyle. Coach Doyle specifically for helping me on my punting ability and special teams prowess. I truly learned a great deal from the coaches I had along the way. As a young freshman new to the public school system, I was certainly mesmerized by the persona of Coach Ron Muhich. As I reflect on those days, Coach Muhich gave off some real Nick Saban vibes. He had the big hair, always walking around with a clipboard and a whistle, and just had that strut with his chest and poked out. He would, as passing, he would give the O'Toole or QB with a head nod in the hallways. I really learned a lot about the game of football and what it takes to be able to play quarterback. But I think the biggest takeaway from my 3 years with Coach was becoming a leader. Now being a quarterback, it kind of comes with the territory, but he really put on a lot on the plate of his quarterbacks in regards to preparation, playmaking, and just rallying the troops. In my opinion, leaders aren't always the most liked people, but are well respected, easy to follow, and most importantly, elevate those around him. Coach Muhich really helped mold me into a leader, not only in athletics, but being able to take many of those characteristics to daily life. So thank you, Coach, for everything you taught me, not only about being a leader, but many life lessons I was able to adopt from the days playing with you. To Coach Healy, I, of course, learned a great deal about leadership playing for you as well. Like quarterback, I was fortunate enough to play point guard for you for 3 years, and similarly, kind of being a leader comes with the territory. But the one trait I think I developed most during my time on the hardwood was simply just competing every day. We really used to get after it in practice, but still to this day, I think there are days that felt like Coach grabbed a few of my teammates and told them to beat me up and not give me anything easy while in practice. While in football, being quarterback, I was lucky to kind of stay away from practice wearing a red jersey or just being the quarterback that, of course, you can't hit. I did not quite have that luxury during basketball season. I love Coach's fiery approach and cherished playing for him. Such a minor detail, but one my mom probably appreciates. Whenever you leave the floor, for me, it was probably after a bad turnover or missed long three-pointer early in the possession. The inevitable high five coming off the court, whether it was good or bad, even though not always met with the most gracious comments. Coach, thank you for everything you did for us, letting me stay, and most importantly, letting me stay in the game at Wheaton North after I got my one and only career technical foul for sticking my finger over my mouth and shushing the opposing crowd. I believe high school days are really formidable years for kids, and while unfortunately you hear some people not having the best experiences, I could not have enjoyed my time more. From the amazing teachers to the deans to, of course, the coaches that I mentioned, sacrificed a ton to help us grow. I think I speak for everyone when I say I can't thank you enough. To my teammates, thank you for too many great times over the years. As a younger player on the team, I relied on upperclassmen for rides just about everywhere. Joe Furco, Pat Dansdale, Derek Babb. But I did pay them handsomely with the Gatorades from our garage refrigerator. You hear it all the time, but football really is the ultimate team sport. Without great teammates, it's tough to win, let alone win at the clip that we did. As a quarterback, no one relies on their teammates more, from the O-lineman blocking every play and never getting any credit to the receivers until now. To the receivers running great routes, catching the ball, having a stellar running back, keeping the defense on their toes, protecting and catching passes, and lastly, a defense that always seemed to get us the ball back quickly, most of the times just after 3 short plays. Again, the best part of the high school days were meeting my friends and teammates. We were fortunate enough to have some great teams and play in some really big games, like playing on ESPN. Our class, while you can get into the specifics, technically probably didn't lose a game, but if you want to say, we only lost one game in the 4 years we played together. Our junior and senior year combined 27-1 and played in the toughest conference and the toughest class in the state. We finished the season as a top 15 team in the country. While we did not have a ton of players play at the college level, I truly believe we were such a great team because of how much it meant to us. Of course, I enjoy reminiscing on the fantastic memories, and certainly specific plays stand out, like a fake reverse to win the state championship by Matt Raj, Caleb Bednar's pick six at a home playoff game, to what I think I recall, a 50-yard scoop and score at West Chicago by Jack Mahalik. But the best memories were the Sundays at Coach Munson's eating 6,000 calories of the best breakfast food and watching Wheaton Warrenville South old highlight tapes as the food digested. Or before getting to high school, when we were in middle school, watching a 2006 highlight tape at the Welker's house and seeing them win a state championship, and that's all that we wanted to be. Our Coach Kish anthem as we pulled into the parking lot after each win. The inevitable 5 a.m. basketball practice over Christmas break, all because my family made the trip to Kansas every year for Christmas, forcing all my teammates to come in super early. The pregame speech Coach Healy always gave in the basketball playoffs, and that all we wanted to do was practice the next day because that meant the season was still alive. You remember the plays, the rivalries, the high-scoring games, but the best is the camaraderie built with your best friends through the good times and bad times and everything in between. Got like 3 sentences left, so let's suck it up here. Lastly, just wanted to thank my family for the support. Well, technically, I'm still everyone's younger brother. I always appreciated that title growing up, whether Reagan's younger brother, Molly, or Maggie's younger brother. Now that my playing days are over, I hope I made you all proud with how I competed and represented her family. Thank you for all being here.
Our next inductee is Dr. Tracey Scott. He'll be presented by fellow Hall of Famer Derek Jackson. Straight in.
Okay, there you go, sir. All right. It's good to be here tonight, back at the old school of orange and black. And as a matter of fact, I'm so glad to be here tonight. I gotta show you something, show you my school spirit. These socks were given to me by Kenny Heath's sister, Elisa. And of course, maybe about 7 or 8 months ago, she's a member of our church. And I often wondered where I was gonna wear these to. So God works in providential ways, so maybe that was it. Anyway, it's good to be here today and to talk about my friend here, Dr. Scott. We have so many wonderful special memories going back many years, playing basketball. I remember I was a junior in high school and I heard about this kid at Edison Junior High School that was averaging 22 points and 24 rebounds a game. And I said, what kind of a stat is that? That's like a Will Chamberlain type stat. And so I just, I remember when he came into high school the next year, I said, well, I was on varsity at that point. I was a senior, and Coach Delgado was a coach. And so I don't know if he knows that, he probably doesn't know, but I asked him to bring Tracey up. Because I said, if he can average that many rebounds, he can play some defense, and we need some defensive players. And so he didn't listen to me, though. So anyway, we had great times, memories through playing ball in our neighborhood. We were always on the court together, playing with and against each other for years. Tot Lots in Hoffman Park. Tot Lot was our little community alley ball court, and then we also had Hoffman Park, which was, of course, where we played baseball and football and so on. So we had those wonderful memories of growing up and playing ball together, and also extended on to where we went to the same church for a while. We played on a church team there that ended up. I don't know how many we won in a row, but it was a lot of them. It was probably, I think we went like 5 or 6 years. We didn't lose the games. We were trying to get to the 88 to get to UCLA's record. That was our pretend goal. And so we played there, and we also played, of course, in other leagues and so on, where we played with and against each other. And those are wonderful memories that I cherish forever. And of course, concurrently running alongside of that was our personal relationship, which of course goes way back as well. And I remember all the times we would spend time together, not only on the basketball court, after the court and so on. We even went on double dates together, of course, before we were married, of course. And I won't go too much into that for Denise's sake. But anyway, we have this long history of all kinds of things, spirited conversations on God and on politics and so forth. And we also, of course, I remember, of course, when his oldest daughter, Dominique, is the same age as my son, DJ. So we have, that connection there, as well as I remember being at his, both of their children's birth. I remember, as a matter of fact, I remember he talked me. Tracey's a very good talker into, and so he talked me into going to Sheboygan to meet his girlfriend. That time was Denise, and that's his present wife. But we traveled like 3 hours one way, and I'm in the car the entire time saying, "What am I doing in this car driving up here to meet his? He's not even married to her. This is his girlfriend's parents." And so you do that for maybe somebody you're with that's married. It's not somebody who's your friend. I don't want to meet her. I don't want to meet her parents. I like her, but I don't want to meet her parents. But he's a good talker into her. And so anyway, that was a good time. I remember traveling through the backwoods there, and we were traveling over. They lived in the back in the woods, and it was a good time. It was a good experience for me. And so all those things are marvelous. But the thing that really stands out to me in my mind more than anything else in the next 30 seconds here, before I get him up here, and that is that I have a little saying that I enjoy, I believe God gave to me, and it's a statement that says, "Learn to love to learn." And so I think I'm, other than his family, I think I'm most proud of him because of his incredible accomplishment of getting a doctorate degree. And as I think back about that, I always tell, we had a couple of people in our church that got doctorate degrees. I was just cheering them on along the way. And I told them that, it's such an incredible honor to be able to get that kind of a degree, because at that point, you become one of the top 1% to 2% of the people in the world. And so it is my a wonderful honor to be able to introduce to you Dr. Tracey Scott.
Talk directly into it. Thank you.
Thank you, Derek, for that wonderful introduction. We are brothers, no doubt. I want to thank the members of the Wheaton Warrenville South Hall of Fame Committee for their dedication and hard work in providing an opportunity for the Wheaton Warrenville South community members to be recognized for their endeavors. Selecting inductees is no easy task. Thank you for adding my name to the Distinguished Hall of Fame list. Thanks to my family for helping me prepare for tonight and for your love over the years. Thanks to my friends, teammates, and coaches who helped me grow and develop during a difficult yet fruit-bearing time. Kenny and Dana, you know how hard we worked. I want to thank Coach Gage specifically. You started me on this journey as my first basketball coach at the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Boys Club on the west side of Chicago. There would be no me without you. The staff and the Daughters of Charity at the Marillac House. Heaven has a Hall of Fame awaiting you. To Coach Luki Hans, thank you for your guidance and protection. I could not have successfully transitioned from Chicago to Wheaton without your love. You, along with Coach Al Ured, helped me to mature in many ways. To Coach Cowens, thank you for your basketball wisdom. You and Coach Thorne are timeless teachers. Coach McGee, you were a pioneer, and thank you for instilling mental toughness. And to my neighborhood coaches, Ray, Steve, and Rayford Knox, and mentors, Uri O.G. and Mr. Lou Holland. Thank you for tolerating my many questions. You guys were always there for me. I'm a mixture of all of the names I have mentioned and many others. When I think about this induction, I am reminded of an Ethiopian proverb that says, "One who learns will eventually teach." One who learns will eventually teach. This proverb is especially relevant to my induction because I lived with a secret throughout my middle and high school years. You see, I don't recall leaving home for a game without having a heated verbal or physical altercation with my dad. The fights happened so frequently that I seldom remember when they did not occur. They always seemed to happen on game night. And I lived with that secret throughout my childhood. My parents never had an opportunity to attend a game or watch me play. One who learns will eventually teach. But through my education and clinical training, I learned to incorporate two crucial concepts into my life that I leave with you tonight. First, I learned how to love. And second, how to forgive. In 5 years before my dad died, he became my best friend. He became my best friend because I forgave him and modeled for him how to love and live in forgiveness. You see, many in my culture and faith believe that we are forever connected to our ancestors. And for that reason, I believe that my parents are here tonight with me. So when you see my picture in the Hall of Fame, you might be tempted to remember the points I scored in the game. But I encourage you to remember that I am someone who got a taste of what it looks like to forgive and love. My voice was true, and I tried to speak my speech in the actions of my life. One who learns will eventually teach. Thank you.
Well, we'd like to thank, on behalf of the committee, and Mike Healy. He's, like we said, getting ready to coach a basketball game, probably in one of those pregame speeches, Reilly, right now. Got them all ramped up and ready to go. But on behalf of Mike Healy, the entire Hall of Fame committee and school and students, I want to say thank you to the inductees for sharing your stories, your memories, your tears in some cases, and your laughs. They all make it special, and like Mike said in the beginning, this is our committee's game day, and we get to sit back and sometimes in those meetings we talk about details and we talk about timing and we talk about all those things, and then in the end, when you sit back right now, you think it was all worth it. So it was. So thank you very much. They were wonderful stories. We need nominations. There's 135 years of athletics in 5 schools. We need nominations so we can stand, so I can sit back here or back there, and we can have some very, very hard decisions about inductees, and so we can hear more great stories. They all need to be told. So we encourage you to nominate as many as we can and continue the great history that has started with us back in 2009 and continue it. If you get a chance, the plaques that everybody had, well, they got the individual ones, but there are also plaques that'll be displayed in the hallway right outside of the main gym on the east side. They are right across the hall from the state championship trophies. So if you get a chance to go look at those are there. The new inductees are up there as well. So I would encourage you to go do that. Also encourage you to go around and look at the school. Most of our programs have individual trophy cases too that you can see. And those are down by the field house. And if you haven't been here in a long time, meander down there and have a look. Dinner will be provided right now in the Commons. Everybody's welcome to attend that. At 6:50, which is about a half hour from now, Rob Kroenke, Rob, raise your hand over there. Everybody knows who Mayor Rob Kroenke is. We'll meet the inductees back by the food line, and you will be taken out and introduced right before the start of the varsity boys basketball game at 7 o'clock. So please meet Rob back there at about 6:50. We'll give some time indications or notifications before that. So on behalf of the committee, I'd like to thank you very much for attending, and have a nice evening.